Hey guys, this is Red and Blue, your channel on YouTube for all things PSG in English. Please subscribe. Today, let's talk about the Ballon d'Or. This week, it was announced the list of all the nominees for all of the prizes that are going to be given on the 22nd of September. So relatively soon. And obviously, PSG has placed a historical number of nominees. 9 of our players made it in the list of 30 potentials for the Ballon d'Or. We've got 2 for the Kopa Award, the young player award. We've got our 2 goalkeepers for the Yashin Award for best goalkeeper. Our coach Luis Enrique is nominated, and the club is nominated. And so, yeah, the question is obviously we're fresh off of a season of tremendous success, historical success, some might say, and success that was really forged by a team playing together and a group of players playing together rather than one or two individuals. And so how does that position us, and does that leave us in a place where we have a reasonable hope of sweeping up all those awards, just cleaning out and keeping all the trophies to ourselves, because we do like trophies. So let's go into the details, and I'll go one by one and kind of talk my way through them. So I'll start with the easier one, and I think the most obvious one, I would say there's 2 which to me are like pretty much given, are going to go our way. The first one would be the Club of the Year trophy, which 5 clubs are nominated right now. There's Barcelona, Botafogo, Chelsea, Liverpool, and PSG. I don't see how that one can go anywhere else than us. Liverpool had a cracker of a season in England, but obviously we kicked them out of the Champions League. Chelsea won the Conference League and the Club World Cup, but they weren't very constant throughout the season. I think they only finished 4th in the Premier League. Botafogo, I have a hard time believing a team out of Brazil is going to win, especially since I think they fell down pretty hard after winning the Libertadores, and with the questions around multi-ownership as well, it'd be pretty political, honestly. Barcelona is really the main competition there. They won La Liga, they won the Spanish Cup, Copa del Rey. They went to the semi-final of the Champions League. They had a very, very good season, and obviously with a new coach, developed a playing style which was really enjoyable to watch. But yeah, at the same time, I mean, we cleaned out, we did the treble, went to the final of the Club World Cup, played incredibly well as well. It's like that one has PSG written all over it, if you ask me. The second one, which is kind of the same situation, is a trophy for the best coach, which is the Johan Cruyff Trophy. 5 nominees: Antonio Conte from Napoli, Luis Enrique, and the Flick of Barcelona, and the Maresca of Chelsea, Arne Slot of Liverpool. All fantastic coaches, honestly, and all had great seasons, but by exactly the same logic and the same rationale as the previous one. To me, clearly should go to Luis Enrique, who I think has really made his mark on the PSG team, and he's been clearly one of the forces, the instigating forces that allowed us to clinch all of the trophies that we have. So for me, this one is also should be relatively in the bag. I mean, there's always stuff to be said. Obviously, we're talking awards at the highest level. So, Arne Slot is a fantastic coach, had a great season. Maresca, massive respect for him. And the Flick, nothing bad can be said given the way things have been going in Barcelona. Antonio Conte, you might like or dislike because he's a very unique sort of character. But taking Napoli to the Serie A is just, it's a big, big success. So all of them could be deserving, but out of the 5, obviously the Champions League being what it is, it gives a big, big leg up to Luis Enrique. Okay, then 3 remain. The other one, which I think is relatively safe to assume would go our way, would be the Yashin Trophy for best goalkeeper. It's a bigger list of nominees, There's 10 of them. Alisson Becker of Liverpool, Yacine Bounou of Al Hilal, Lucas Chevalier, formerly Lille and now PSG, Thibaut Courtois of Real Madrid, Donnarumma of PSG, Emiliano Martinez of Aston Villa, Jan Oblak of Atletico, David Raya of Arsenal, Matt Sales of Nottingham Forest, and Jan Sommer of Inter. And yeah, I think, purely like in terms of pure goalkeeping skills and so on, I think like to me, Courtois is probably the best goalkeeper of that list, purely on what he can do himself and how skilled he is. But if you look at the player in the context of this past season and what all of them have accomplished, yeah, it feels close to a no-brainer as well that this could go to Donnarumma. He's had a big importance for us in our Champions League run. He's had some saves which were, very, very internet worthy and went around YouTube and went around the social networks and so on. So he's been definitely seen. We won a penalty shootout in Liverpool that he played a role in. In Aston Villa, he keeps us in the game. Against Arsenal, he's got those saves in the return against Odegaard and against Saka. And then, like, the final was probably the easiest game for him, but I think he still has one or two against Thuram. So yeah, like, ultimately, like, it feels like if you look at who was the best goalkeeper specifically for the 2025 year, yeah, probably Donnarumma. Like I said, Courtois is very, very close, but Real Madrid didn't win any trophies. He didn't really have any like super memorable moment, at least nothing that's top of mind with me right now. If anything, like, I think David Raya of Arsenal, Alisson Becker of Liverpool, and Jan Sommer of Inter, they all had some really big moments, and they played in some really big games as well. So they probably, like, also might be contender, but all of them at, like, lost at some point, and so, like, you've got to recognize the winners, and that's why, like, Donnarumma might have a leg up on this one. We'll see. It's a little bit closer. And then there's two which for me are like fairly contested. So I'll keep the Ballon d'Or for the end. So let's talk about the youth award, like the young talent, the Copa Trophy. There's also 10 nominees for this one. Ayoub Bouadi of Lille, midfielder, who I don't think everyone might know, but very, very good talent, and someone who I hope might take a look at in the Mercato window. Pau Cubarsí, central defender of Barcelona, Désiré Doué, our guy, Estevao, who just joined Chelsea from Palmeiras, Dino Hussein, who just went from Bournemouth to Real Madrid, Miles Lewis-Kelly in Arsenal, Rodrigo Mora of Porto, João Neves, our boy as well, Lamine Yamal of Barcelona, and Kenan Yildiz of Juventus. So I think this one is probably the toughest one. And I want to have a distinction made up front, because there's another trophy for young talent, which Lamine Yamal won last year, and where he cannot get it twice. This is not the case for the Copa Trophy. The Copa Trophy, I think Lamine Yamal did win it last year, but he can win it again. And he's still in the list, and so it could very well happen. That said, to me, if I look at the list, I think it's a pretty clear head-to-head between Désiré Doué and Lamine Yamal. And I think, it's really hard to say, because this is a panel of journalists from around the world voting, and so it's a little bit opaque in terms of how their thinking process goes. But I would say, like, given who's voting and the fact that they're coming from all around the world, there's a reasonably good chance that Lamine Yamal might edge out Désiré Doué. Lamine Yamal has had like he's had a good season. He hasn't had a tremendous season. He started slow and then ramped up and had some phenomenal performances in the second half of the season and in the Champions League specifically, and in a way which really stuck in people's mind. And so it makes for a great performance for the instant culture of the internet, I would say. And when you see even the Barcelona fans, they're pretty much split when they have to pick who was best last season between Yamal and Rafinha, which kind of says something. But at the same time, like I said, it's journalists from all around the world who are voting. They're voting on who's the best young player of the season. And yeah, I think Yamal is just able to produce things that no other players really has. And I think what's really like the equalizing factor there is that Desiree Doué also had a similar kind of season, in that he started slow. He took his time to get comfortable in Paris, get situated, and really get started. And his season really ramped up in the second half of the season, all the way to that very, very memorable Champions League final. Yamal, he had this big moment in the semi-final in the games against Inter, where he really, really dominated that pitch. But yeah, like, so it's very, very close. But I think, yeah, like the star power of Yamal, the fact that he's already been at that level, and like the power of Barcelona, plus like I think there's probably going to be people who are not going to want to vote for Doué for this price, because they won't want PSG to win everything. And I think that's probably off the list, and without jumping too far into the Ballon d'Or conversation, I think this might be the price where it's easiest to justify someone else than a PSG player actually winning it, which is a pretty bad reason if you ask me, but I think it's entirely possible. So we'll see, but this one I fear like Yamal might have a little bit of an edge. And then finally, so the last one, the big one, the Ballon d'Or, I think it's the one that everyone is very focused on, everyone is talking about. We have a list of 30 nominees for it. I'm not going to go through the whole list. I already have little voice as it is. We've got 9 PSG players in the list, though. So basically, everyone in our starting 11 in the final of the Champions League, apart from Marquinhos and Pacho. So Donnarumma, Hakimi, Nuno Mendes, the 3 in midfield, Vitinha, João Neves, Fabian Ruiz, and the 3 up front, Doué, Dembele, and Kvara. Barcola didn't get the nod either, which kind of, it's not too great, but it is what it is. And I think for this one, I think Dembele is the favorite for it, and I think that's pretty much. I don't think it's a lock. I think there's a real competition with Yamal again, but I think Dembele has the edge. I do think he probably wins it. I'm fairly optimistic about it, but at the same time, I'm nervous about a couple of things. First, because I don't want to fall into a French-centered vision of it, or a PSG fan vision of it, where we're so focused on our own players, focused on our own team, that we underestimate what other people might think and what other people might say, and how they might look at other players. And a player like Yamal, like I said, he's got a global following. He's very well known. He's got the star power going for him. And, he's got a generational talent. When a player like Dembele, he's been on the stage for a year, but he hasn't been known to be at that level of a Ballon d'Or. And so it involves people changing the vision that they have of the player, which is not the easiest thing in the world to happen. And I think, I assume like all of the people who are going to judge for the Ballon d'Or, they've seen the final of the Champions League and they've seen the last few games and so on. But they probably won't have seen all of the Ligue 1 games where Dembele was such a huge difference maker for us. They might not have seen like the earlier games in the Champions League against Brest, maybe against Aston Villa. They might not have seen that. So there might be some gaps in terms of how Dembele is viewed. That said, the Ballon d'Or is essentially judged. There's actually like a grid in terms of what goes into it, and I think that's what a lot of people who are shorting on the internet are trying to make everyone forget. It is about like the individual skill of the player and the talent of the player, but it is also about how he contributed to a team. And to a team performing and winning trophies. And it is about like the personality and the ethics of the player. And I think those are two areas where Dembele has just miles and miles and miles ahead of anyone else. At least when it comes to Yamal. I obviously don't know him personally, but like all of the chatters that's been going out about him recently hasn't been very positive. He's won in Spain, obviously, but didn't win the Champions League. Didn't win the Nations League with Spain. Didn't even get into the Club World Cup. So ultimately, I think in those two areas, Dembele has probably more for him, going for him than anyone else. And I think, the way that Dembele has been able to lead the team and really assume the burden of leadership and doing whatever is needed to get the team to win. And you can definitely see that in the final of the Champions League, in Dembele, dropping back to create space, making the passes, making the runs to press Sommer time and time again. It's not a player who's being selfish or who's being mindful of how his performance is going to get seen in the context of an individual award. And so for me, I really hope that, this is the kind of stuff that really carries him across the line and gets him the Ballon d'Or. The other thing that's, slightly worrisome as well is that with 9 PSG players, there is a chance and a risk of them taking votes from each other, essentially. And a player like Hakimi, for example, who just did an interview in the media earlier today or yesterday, saying that, his season was worthy of a Ballon d'Or, absolutely was. 100%. He's completely right. He had a phenomenal season, and he is completely deserving of the Ballon d'Or. But the last thing you want is half of the people voting for him and half voting for Dembele. And then Yamal squeezing through on account of being more consistent. I don't think that would happen. Because here too, the voting system is that everyone gives a top 3, I think, top 3 or 5, but I think top 3. And PSG has made it quite clear that they push Dembele, and Dembele is the leading candidate. And so I'm hoping that kind of gives the edge to Dembele in a lot of people's mind, and they actually follow that direction. But obviously, we'll have to see how that conversation keeps happening in the next couple of weeks. The good news as well is that the ceremony is on the 22nd of September, so it doesn't give a whole lot of time for random things to happen, dynamics to completely change or anything like this. And so I'm very much hopeful for Dembele. So clean sweep for PSG. Is it possible? Yes, definitely. Is it likely? It's not impossible. There's a good 50-50 chance, I would say. Like I said, I think the Young Player Award is the one where we are more likely to get tripped up. I really do hope and think Dembele will get his Ballon d'Or. But yeah, we'll see on the 22nd of September. Stay tuned because things are gonna get crazy. The propaganda machines are already started, so it's not gonna stop. And so we're gonna get talked about this for the next month and a half, I guess. But yeah, anyway, for now, thanks for watching all the way to the end. Please like the video. Please leave me a comment on what you think on all of those prices. Do you agree with my analysis? Do you see differently on any of them? And please subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell after as well to get notified of future videos. And don't forget, Ballon d'Or or not, ici c'est Paris!